I was supposed to run Boston last year in 2025, but in February, I had what's called a transient ischemic attack. In layman's terms, that's a mini stroke.
Oh, wow.
And it ended up being found that I had a abnormality in my heart that I had to have a heart procedure to fix so I wouldn't have another event or an actual stroke. And because of all that happening in the spring, I canceled coming to Boston last year, 2025. And I spent, as soon as I had my heart procedure done and I had clearance from all my doctors, I started training again to re-qualify for Boston. There's a course out in Washington State that's known for having a net downhill. It's a good Boston qualifier. I went there, ran a personal best 253, and that's what re-qualified me to get back to Boston. And so this is kind of my comeback, my big comeback race, my big revenge race for missing last year after having to put my health first. My name's Bennett. I'm from Spokane, Washington, which is in the United States.
Okay, and how far have you had to travel to get here?
I spent about 8 hours total in travel, 4.5 hours on one plane, a long layover, and then another 2.5 hours on a second plane.
Oh, wow, that's quite some trek considering you've stayed in the same country, but I guess that's the USA.
That's the US for you.
Cool. Well, how does it feel to be in Boston?
I love being in Boston. It's a great city. The people are great. Food's great. The race and the support we get out there on the course is it really can't be beat.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and especially during marathon weekend. But I'm looking at your jacket, so can I ask, have you been to Boston before to run the marathon?
I have been to Boston before to run the marathon in 2022. This jacket, however, is 2020. It's the year that Boston didn't happen. It got canceled because of COVID. And I had already purchased the jacket. The races all went virtual, and my Boston that year ended up looking like a race mostly by myself, trail running, where I covered over 12,000 feet or about 3,000 meters of elevation, completely on my own on a rainy day in Spokane, Washington.
Wow, so was that like part of the Boston virtual marathon that they tried to do instead? Okay,
Yeah.
and you turned it into almost like an ultra trail race.
Yeah, I wasn't, as a lot of people did, I got pretty depressed during 2020. I'm a hospital doctor, so I was working with a lot of COVID patients, and there was a lot of sad things happening around me. So my training fell off, and I just was not trained to do a road marathon at all. And trail running's a little more forgiving when you're not fully trained for the distance, because you can kind of hike, walk if you need to here and there. So yes, it was basically a trail ultra marathon, ran solo.
Wow, I think that's great advice as well for people who are not used to running on the trails and the benefits that brings. So you said you had that phase then where maybe you were not training as much, a little bit depressed because of the pandemic. How did you get back into running?
I used running throughout the pandemic as still kind of one of my escapes. It was a way to be outside, rarely with people, but still being outside. Being outside was a big part of maintaining my mental health and sanity when everything else was locked down and we couldn't really do much else.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. In fact, I think running was probably one of the best things you can do during such an event.
Yes, I agree.
Well, so and then how does it make you feel? These years later that you're here, you can run the race. Does it make you appreciate it even more, knowing that you missed it and you've got the jacket to prove it?
Yeah, it does. Definitely, you get an appreciation for the scale of these events, what has to go into it, and bringing this many people together, this close proximity and safely together. So you just get a real appreciation for what goes into putting on something this size with this many people.
Yeah, oh, excellent. And how did you get into the Boston Marathon this year?
This year, I'll try to keep it a short story. I was supposed to run Boston last year in 2025, but in February, I had what's called a transient ischemic attack. In layman's terms, that's a mini stroke.
Oh, wow.
And it ended up being found that I had a abnormality in my heart that I had to have a heart procedure to fix so I wouldn't have another event or an actual stroke. And because of all that happening in the spring, I canceled coming to Boston last year, 2025. And I spent, as soon as I had my heart procedure done and I had clearance from all my doctors, I started training again to re-qualify for Boston. there's a course out in Washington State that's known for having a net downhill. It's a good Boston qualifier. I went there, ran a personal best 253, and that's what requalified me to get back to Boston. And so this is kind of my comeback, my big comeback race, my big revenge race for missing last year after having to put my health first.
Oh my God, that's super inspirational. I mean, it's hard to qualify for Boston at the best of times, but to do so after such an operation and within that same year as well, that's incredible. I mean, what advice would you have for people who have been struggling to get into Boston? They're trying to qualify. Anything from a training perspective that you would recommend that's helped you?
Golly, so for on my own, I used to train completely on my own, and I was able to qualify training completely on my own. But you have to do things like make sure you're doing the speed work, hill repeats, both uphill and downhill, and really gain the distance in your legs. You want to get up to, if you want to qualify and hit those really hard to hit fast times, for some people that's going to be 40, 50 miles a week, 100 kilometers a week. But I started working with a coach these last couple of years, and she has, working with her and having her put together my training plans, my workouts, has taken several minutes off of even my prior times. So if you're struggling to get there on your own, I encourage folks to, look for a coach. I usually recommend folks find somebody local to them that they could actually meet up with, have a coffee, so you have a connection with that person. I know there's a lot of coaches out there online that also provide great training plans, but your local community is a great place to look for a coach also.
Well, so you would say having a coach really helps you gain those extra minutes?
Oh yes, definitely. I used to be just under that 3-hour mark, and my coach has helped me get down to that 253 that I've ran, and we're trying to push down to under 250 even. We'll see if we get there.
Nice. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, cool. So it just shows that, people say you peak maybe early 30s, but no, you can keep going and keep going. And I say that because, I'm 43 and I still have it in my head that I can get faster. So it's inspirational to hear what you say. And maybe I need to think about getting a coach again as well, because I've had one and they do help. But we're also in a day where there's a lot of AI tools out there now and AI apps and training plans. It sounds like I already know what the answer will be from what you've just said, but what would you say is better, a human coach or an AI coach or an AI app, and why?
I think there's advantages to both, and I think it depends on the individual. I really think we shouldn't lose the human aspect of a lot of things. I also like supporting friends, colleagues in what they like to do, but it is not always accessible for everybody to pay for a coach, and it's not always particularly cheap. I'm very fortunate, my coach is very affordable, but there's a lot of times that financial barrier, and a lot of the AI generated or computer generated apps are a lot more financially available. So I think you should do what works for you, but if you have the ability and the means, I really recommend a human coach.
No, I agree, and I think these apps, they can also get people into running in the first place, which is a great thing. I think if someone then wants to level up, then yeah, I would agree with you. I think there are the benefits of a human coach that can really help there. So with your coach, and you talked about you'd like to go maybe sub 250 in the future, but Boston is also notorious for being hilly and maybe not the PB type of course. So what is your target for Monday, and are you confident?
For Monday, I'm looking at anywhere between 250 and 255, and I would consider anywhere in that range really great success. The training that we've done this time around has really been on target for that. I've had some really great long 22-mile workouts where I've shown that I can sustain that pace and tempo with a controlled heart rate. So I'm really hopeful that that's kind of where I'll be able to target and land.
Yeah, so still potentially a PB then on the Boston course, but the conditions look like they're going to be pretty good on Monday. It can change, but at the moment, it looks like it could be in your favor.
Yeah, it looks like it could be in my favor, but if the day starts to not go my way, I'm just going to slow down and take it all in and really enjoy Boston.
Amazing. And Do you have a sort of favorite running influencer? Do you see any content creators on social media that sort of stick out at you?
Some of them are just like really funny people. They put together really funny skits. Laura McGreen's one that comes to mind off the top of my head. But there's not anybody that I follow like hyper religiously.
Yeah, okay. Would you say, from what you've seen though, are running influencers, do they have a net positive or net negative impact on the running world?
I think you get the best of both worlds there. You get some people who it seems like their goal is support the sport, get more people involved in the sport. We're kind of with the motto that Eliud Kipchoge lives, running is for everyone and it's for everywhere. Those influencers, I think, that's great. That's what we need. We need to encourage more people to just get outside and be active and move your feet. It doesn't matter if you walk or run, walk or jog or whatever you want to call it. Those are the influencers that I think they're doing great work out there. You hear some stories about other influencers of doing things that disrupt other people's races, camera crews following them through a race. I don't actually know the names of any of those. I've just read the horror stories about it. And to me, that's not great for the sport. If anything, that drives more people away than it does invite more people in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's exactly why I ask. I think with these things, there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to ask you one more question and then let you go on and start preparing for your race. But given what you went through a year ago with your heart surgery, what would you say to any other person that maybe goes through something similar in terms of how they face that challenge and then how do they get back into running afterwards?
Yeah, it's tough when something like that happens to you, especially if you're an active person, you consider yourself very fit, and all of a sudden you have a medical event happen that you're like, why me? What's going on here? And that on its own is very humbling, and it can put you in a pretty dark place mentally too. I think it's really important when you do that to know you can get back to running and you can do it in a way that's safe and healthy. I think it's really important that if you have something like that happen, that you talk with your doctors. You make sure they know your goals and what you want to get back to. The whole time I was doing all of this, my neurologist, my cardiologist, my primary care doctor, they were very aware of how important running was to me and that I was going to do everything I could to get back to doing it and doing it quickly, that I had race goals within even weeks of having my heart procedure. And they were all on board and I followed their rules, and here I am now, requalified for Boston and ready to roll again on Monday.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I get goosebumps, to be honest, listening about that. And I created this channel, Unique Runners TV, with the belief that all runners are unique and have a story to tell, and that was a perfect example. So thank you very much for sharing your story, and I wish you all the best for Boston on Monday.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you so much.